Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Women's Fittest. I'm super excited to have my guest today, IFBB Pro, Figure Pro, Stephanie Hammermeister. She was a figure pro in the last few years and now has sort of transitioned out of the bodybuilding space, doing something along the lines of therapy, counseling, and I just love following you on Instagram. And you're currently pregnant as well. So much has happened.
Yeah, so much. What's up, guys? I'm really happy to be on here with you. Definitely a long time coming and just really grateful for the opportunity to share some stuff today.
Yeah, I love these stories because bodybuilding has such a great impact on so many of, obviously the women that I interview, but learning what to do with that and how to transition and then, what's next in life, I think is super important, especially for the newbies who are coming into it to realize there's got to be an exit strategy. And I want to talk to you about that.
Yeah. There's so much life beyond that, and then there's so much life within it. So for the beginner, I think what's going to be most important is that just in my experience, and then of course those that I help transition into and through and out of bodybuilding, because I still work with some clients that do compete still and have for years. So what's most important, I think, is to really move into this state, this practice, this however you'd like to call it, profession, because it can be, move into it with intention. And when I say this, I'm speaking specifically because most of the tendency we have as humans, right, is the human experience to want to take control of things when things are out of control. One of the beautiful parts about how our body works for us, and of course the nutrition that we put into our body works for us, is that it can manipulate the way that we look. And so what tends to happen is if there is not a pure intention to want to do something such as bodybuilding with a pure heart of just really loving lifting and really loving the challenge, to be able to strengthen your body in a way that you haven't before, I think anything outside of that is going to be detrimental to your mental state as you continue in. If you're using this as a control thing to want to manipulate your body to achieve a certain result that is outside your personal satisfaction, you're going to end up in a tough place as you continue throughout the journey, and transitioning through season into off season. Watching your body change is going to be very difficult. You're going to struggle with body image, if you hadn't struggled with that before. And so the intention is very, very important, I think, just to start out for the newbies.
I love what you said there about, I feel like a lot of women even come into this as a sort of punishment to their body. People approach changing their physique as a punishment, like they're not worthy or good enough as they are. Or
they want to be, right? It's the sense of like, I want to prove to. And here's the thing, right? I want to prove to other people and I want to prove to myself how much I can control myself. And really that's the underlining thing. And there's a lot of surface stuff, is that I just want to feel good, which is another thing. But again, when you look at the surface stuff about why you're entering into this again, profession or practice, is really you're looking at it with the intent of, I really enjoy what I'm doing. It brings me much joy. It's not doing it to be self-competitive or to serve a different purpose as of, I need to be looked at in a certain way. I need to have praise. Doing this will get me those things. Those are going to be really challenging because the actual industry itself perpetuates those tough limiting self-beliefs that you're already moving into it. So you're going to find yourself really struggling and lost, battling with even more internal conflict as you continue into the industry, if that's something that is the intent while moving into it.
Yeah. Well, and doing what you love too is going to guide you out of the sport as well, because you listening to your body, it's going to show you how you need to evolve as you go to motherhood, or, when you're my age, getting into, I'm 45 years old. So it's like, learning how to transition, but still, I mean, I love lifting. So figuring out how to continue to do that in the gym.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's
I
really,
think that transition is actually beautiful if you allow it to be. There is such a, it's going to be really challenging because it requires your mental and physical to change. And one of the really most annoying parts of our mind, which also benefits us quite extensively within certain things, is that it really loves what's familiar. So it really, really loves the things that it's familiar with and really does not like anything it doesn't already know. So when you're going into kind of transition out of this, this space, is really becoming the first thing, I think, for me, and I'm speaking personally, and of course I help coach this to my clients, and also just everyone in general, is really start with, I just want to move my body and see what feels good.
yeah,
Because most of the industry and most of the competitions, you are asking your body, it's really, you're not asking, you're telling your body that this is what's being done. I don't care if you like it. I don't care if you're struggling. I don't care if you're tired and depleted. I don't care if you're like just strung out. This is what we're going to do. And so you have this relationship with mind body connection. And this is a healthy, connection that you're supposed to have, that they work harmoniously together. And when you start demanding either or, you're going to have this disconnect at some point where my body's no longer working for me. So I hate my body. I can't get it to where I want it to go to get on stage. This prep, why is it not doing things that I want it to do? And of course, you look at those reasons why, of course, it's not, flowing together in a harmonious way. So really, the moving out and transitioning is going to best benefit you in the sense where I'm starting to inquire now. And I talk about inquiry all the time because we don't really ask ourselves a lot of questions, and people don't really ask us a lot of questions. We really kind of just go with the flow and do and just move. And so inquiry is going to be the first thing that I'd recommend, of course, is really just, how is this making my body feel? I want to be challenging, but I don't want to be aggressive. I want to be assertive, but I don't want to be rude and mean. Right.
yeah,
And seeing how that feels. And over the course of a couple of weeks, you're going to see this kind of beautiful adjustment that is present with you while you're lifting. You're way more mindful about the weight that you're moving, or if you want to move any weight at all, remove the weights if you want to completely, and just use it as a challenge to make your muscles struggle a little bit without any weight. So we kind of have this different dynamic and different approach, because you really have to be able to have something that's, still present in the gym, but very much different from what you have been doing. Because likely, if it's any much of the same, it's going to want to go back to what is familiar. Well, I'm going to go, push some more weight, and I'm just going to really put, and that's going to be okay, because it's going to happen. You might transition out of it, but it's important to just be aware of, oh, I did that today. The first time I went for a run, I was just planning to go for a run. My intent was completely just going for a run. And I saw there was a park across the way, and I saw, these blocks and ladders. And I'm like, ooh, one more lap around, girl. You just like step up on those, do some step ups. And like, I did do them. And I, unfortunately, like at that time, just was completely aware that I was, crossing my intention to go back into what was familiar. And you just give yourself grace. And that's really kind of building this trusting relationship that you don't have with yourself while you're prepping.
yeah. I was thinking, I thought of three things about that. And I think being present is super important, because we're always thinking about what we want to be. And so I think being present is the first thing. And then understanding that this evolution is an adaptation. And so you have to take it in its own time, because when you push it, you don't create that adaptation. Like you said, you fall back into what's familiar, or you go out into these bounds that are beyond what you can adapt to. And then there's this level of discipline that also needs to take place over a gradation of time, because, you can't just be disciplined, which is why I think a lot of people fail with fitness or nutrition at the beginning, is because they're expecting too much of themselves. you wouldn't expect a baby to be running a marathon. They have to learn how to crawl and then, pick themselves up and walk. And it's all these stages. So it's fascinating. It's a fascinating process. And I think we're very impatient people when we are.
And it's very natural. It's natural to be impatient. Again, when you want something so badly, or when you want something good for yourself, right? It's really going to, and instead of using the word impatient, and I always work with reframing too. I'm very much like, your mind is listening to everything, your thoughts, and it's really the command center for your body. And so it's listening to the next prompt, and it's listening to what you want it to do next. And so we have been accustomed to thinking a certain way, but reframing is really, really going to be super important, especially for transitioning out of it. It says, well, I have to do these things, rather, I get to, that's one of very, common one. Learning to communicate. And I forget what the word that you said there that I wanted to reframe.
Impatient.
Yes. Rather, I'm not impatient, right? We don't want to say I'm not, because that's a cue for the mind to be like, perfect. Yeah, you are, like, what are you saying? You are impatient. That you're progressing, right? And that you're excited, right? So instead of using impatient, I'm excited. Because really the sense that's happening, that's viscerally happening to your body, is that anxiousness and excitement to do that is making you feel impatient, because it's not here now. So rather, instead of feeling I'm impatient here, that I'm excited, because it opens it up. Impatient means like, I'm impatient, so I shouldn't be, right? Where we've been conditioned to believe that impatience is not a good thing. And it comes with some, consequences sometimes. We want to completely open up the scope to say, this is all excitement, and I love this feeling, and I can sit with this feeling for way longer than I can sit with impatience. All right.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. Words. Yeah, that's something I think over the last year or two that I had really delved into, as far as how much words matter.
Big time.
It's much more popular on Instagram too, especially if you follow people who are working with, women, especially with nutrition and things like that, because we're realizing that our diet culture has really messed with our brains a lot, and the verbiage has been very detrimental to a lot of people.
Big time. And if I can help, especially with those who are trying to lose weight, there's really amazing ways that you can begin communicating with your body just with using, prompts. And when I was pregnant, my husband and I joke, because I'm obviously a little thicker human, just naturally built a little bigger. Right. And so I joke with my husband all the time. It's just like, well, you're going to be you have to roll me places when I'm pregnant, before I was pregnant. And so now, I had this fear going into pregnancy that I was going to gain all this weight. And again, the reframe is really important, that my body, I'm commanding my body to gain as much weight that is needed for a healthy baby and a healthy being. Right. And so going into people that are trying to lose weight or trying to have their body be a certain way is really having that patience with your body, but also, anything that says lose, like the mind thinks it's losing, it's going to get back. So losing weight, that entire term to the mind means that, okay, it's temporary. So if it's losing, then we're going to have to get this back. Right. So instead of using, I'm losing weight, or I want to lose weight, rather, I want to, shed this extra fat, or be very specific, because again, the mind is listening, and it's going to be very helpful for you if you choose the right frame of wording and the right frame of mind, seeing that happen, and really being with that sense of, I'm dropping this. It's burning off of me, right? Some of these very specific terms are going to be way more helpful than I want to lose weight, right? Because again, that term is, with the mind in general, it's just like, we got to get that back.
Yeah, I never thought about it in that perspective, but it's very true. How, when we demonize things, we tend to want to gravitate towards them.
Of course. Well, you're challenging the mind, which is, again, in hypnotherapy too, is like using that to trigger some thought that's an action out of the mind. We use that as a very specific tool, because it does encourage you to take action. It says, oh, you don't think I can do that? Watch me do it. And so again, it's going to be really interesting the way that you speak to yourself, and of course the way that you enter into anything again with intention is going to be really important as to what commands you're giving what commands you are consciously giving your mind, especially over time that's consistent so that it becomes routine and ritual.
Yeah. Well, I want to do a little bit of a background with you so that people have a little bit of familiarity. But on that note too, if I don't remember, remind me, I want to ask you about social media, and I want to ask you, I want to talk about this a little bit and the psychology behind it, and how would you reframe some of the things that, or respond instead of react to things that people are, presenting to you that might be negative? I think that would be super helpful. But
for sure. I'm totally there with you.
But this is kind of funny. This reminds me of, I have a therapist that she moved about an hour away. So I do telehealth with her every 2 weeks still. And so
good.
Very much like, I don't know if you do telehealth at all when you
I do, yeah.
Yeah. It's been, I think honestly, one of the great things that came out of lockdown was just
100%.
The ability for people to not have to totally break up their day to just be able to connect with their therapists and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Totally. Yeah. And having that support, right. And really just, taking, therapy has been, again, conditioned to be this like, this woo-woo type thing, or I don't need therapy. I'm strong enough to deal with this on my own. Over time, of course, over this last, 10 years or so, it's become way more of a tool. And of course, well-known and supportive, right? And I always want to just kind of, again, reframe that in a way where it's just support system. It's your support. It's your people, right? It's your support system. It's a person that you can look to and go, this person understands me, gets me, and helps me become a better me. So this is really just the support that I need. Rather, I'm going to therapy because there's something wrong with me. Again, reframe. Take yourself out of there's something wrong with me. There's something going on that we need to address, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think one of the biggest things that I'm taking away from it at this point in my life is I'm really learning about myself and how I function. And that's fascinating. Good. It's fascinating to me, and it's helpful because it's applicable and creates a better life for myself, so
totally.
Yeah, it's
absolutely. Not really I'm proud of you.
Well, yeah, but I love that. It's not about fixing. To me, everything's about education and learning me, how I function. That is helpful too, because like you said, a lot of us are conditioned that, these things about us are flaws, and they're not, they're characteristics. We have to learn how to, to use them in our relationships and be able to be understood and communicate, rather than just say, this is something wrong with me and I need to fix it,
Absolutely. When you claim something, it's going to be yours. Again, your mind's listening. Like I have depression. Depression is me. It's mine. Or my anxiety. I have anxiety. And of course, acknowledgement and the awareness that I'm feeling anxious or that I'm feeling depressed is something very different than having you say, I am the depression is me, right? Again, when you're holding on to something so tight, the mind's not going to want to let that go. So no matter how much support you have, you're going to be stuck in that pattern of feeling the way that you are because you're commanding your mind to keep it and your body to hold it in, right? So it's just this feeling of anxiety, or, I have this, there is a presence of, right, anxiety. There's a presence of depression. I'm noticing these feelings, right? Not that they are yours.
Yeah. I bet one that you probably cringe at is when women say, I feel fat. Like fat is a feeling, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, even, someone talking about themselves in that way. And I do want to shed light on that as well, just very briefly, is that everyone's reality is their own, right? That basically, if that person feels like they're fat, or if that person really does look in the mirror and say, I'm fat, that is what they look at. That is what they feel every single day. It's not your job to tell them that they're not, because you are perpetuating their insecurity even more, right? Again, we go back to this inquiry is to say, is this person struggling with a body image, right? Is that, well, what about you? Do you, makes you feel fat? inquiry is really going to help them also dissect whether or not they actually believe that they're fat, whether it's truthful or not. Because they can just be like, like, look, and they pull at nothing, right? And so, well, you say, what exactly are you pulling there? You're really beginning to get them, to become aware of some of the things that they're just having this belief about that might not actually be true. You're not contradicting the belief that they already have, because they'll already be on the reactive, just because you're basically conflicting with a belief that they have just by saying, no, you're not, right? Because they live with that every day.
Yeah. Oh, interesting stuff.
I know there's so much we could dive into, and I love it all. Oh, we're amazing. So complex. But really it comes down to just being seen and being heard for what is actually happening in our own realities. And after some time, being able to support that person in a way that is not diving into what's going on with them, but also being very much like, I see that this is happening for you. I see that you're struggling. I see that there's some things you'd like to change. What might that, what could we do? Or what could you do? Really supportive in that way, instead of really kind of molding into their situation or their reality, right? This person is saying, I'm really struggling with this, or I'm really, really, really sad. And we have a tendency to automatically, reactively go, I'm sorry. And this person's situation in reality has nothing to do with me. And even though I can feel empathetic and have compassion, I'm not actually sorry for anything. And so we have this tendency to naturally gravitate and put ourselves into the situation just by our words alone. So instead of saying, I'm sorry, notice what is happening with them, right? It's not about you. It's about what's happening with them. I'm noticing that this is really painful for you. If you need anything, I'm here. Take out the I'm sorry. Begin to, again, let that be for you. Let that be for when you do something that you do to hurt someone else, or something that is, let that be something that is meaningful. Because when you start to use it in a way that, like, oh my God, I'm sorry, it's reactive because I can't help you. I don't know what to do here. Notice what they're feeling, notice what they might be going through, and just become aware of that and use that as the conversation piece first.
Yeah. That's one of the first rules of parenting. I think when kids are struggling with stuff, is to first acknowledge that what they're feeling and what they're going through, rather than try to fix it, which as a mom, you always want to be like, why? And then
I know, fix it.
You're like, oh, I understand.
We do.
You're upset. It's like,
of course, we grow up that way. We still have all of that. We want to be helpful. And of course, there's other people who struggle with it a little bit more because of, environmental factors growing up. But we want to be that person for someone to be able to help. But oftentimes we go, oh, this is like, I don't know what to do here. So we're very reactive in our response, when it's really not about us, and just to really be aware of this is their experience. And I want to know more about their experience. I don't know. I can see that their pain is affecting me a little bit, because I don't want to see this person hurt, but it's not my fault that they're hurt. Right. So it's like, just becoming aware of the situation, being observer of the situation, pulling yourself out and seeing this from a different perspective is going to be just super helpful. In any dynamic, including social media.
All right. Very cool. Very cool. Okay. So let's back up. This is how I usually start the podcast, but we just went off on all tangents, which is great. But, so I love the epigenetic background of, the athletes. So I'm curious, like, what kind of sports you played in that growing up, and then how did you transition into bodybuilding? And we'll talk a little bit about your competition history as well.
Yeah. So I started in 2015. When I started, again, I was in this kind of place where I needed to have a little bit of control in my life. And I was unaware of it at the time. I wasn't really consciously aware of some of the things that I am aware of now. So, but I started out of this kind of desire to have some stability in my life. It was not so much because I really loved to lift. It was really because I wanted stability. And prior to that, I grew up as an athlete all of my life, playing basketball, collegiate level scholarship athlete for college on a full ride for basketball. And shortly after we moved to California, really a couple of years later, then I started competing, which was in 2015. Things happened really quickly in the evolution of the bodybuilding industry. I went overall my first show, overall my second show, went pro my third show, and then was in Olympia my first year. And then of course the Arnold, the next Olympia. And then the third year, Arnold was my last, my second to last show. I did another show in April after March, and then I retired. There was a lot that was actually surfacing through the time that I was competing for me personally, and stuff that was just becoming so, knocking so hard at the door that it was just not going to be shut down anymore, or not going to be let in. And so, of course, the industry was becoming more aggressive with the drugs and how the physical body looked. And it was not something that I was willing to do, to sacrifice. And you have to look at it at one point and go, what am I doing this for? And is this going to serve a better purpose for me internally than externally? And for me at that time, it wasn't. And I had to choose between something I loved at the time, I loved it so dearly, and something that was completely an internal value for me, that it was just constantly being conflicted. It was like more, this, that, and you're constantly having to break your own trust with yourself. And it gets to a certain point where you have to look at everything and go, this is not feeling good for me. And having to sacrifice my, personal values to something that I say that I love, this doesn't correlate. What is the issue here? And I just made the decision to hang it up right after my April show. It was a very clear-cut decision. I didn't know what was going to be affected as a result of my decision in terms of my financial life, because that was my profession. That's what I was getting paid to do. So, which is amazing. But again, I went into it for, I think my intention was it was purposeful at the time because it served its purpose, and then ultimately veered off towards, year 3, where it started to progressively get bigger and the demand started to get way more extensive beyond my comfortability. And so this is kind of the decision that was made. And it was just a clear-cut one, that this is my value. I am no longer in service of that. I'm no longer making decisions. I'm no longer walking in pursuit of the value that I've upheld, and that I told myself that I would. And so it was a clear-cut decision, and I haven't looked back since.
What were some of the things that were like, I know you had several sponsorships. I remember your Instagram. The feed was amazing. You were doing tons of videos. You had tons of video footage. It was perfect for people who were looking for inspiration and technique on how to lift. How did you end up going back to college then, or how did you? And I actually honestly don't even know what your title is or what your degree.
Yeah, I'm kind of there's a lot of different specialties that I work within. So it's really about, personal development and emotional support. I really kind of am stuck between that, I guess, title, if you will. And that was something I was struggling with as well, because I'm a rapid transformational therapist. I'm I am board certified in hypnotherapy. I have all of these other, I have a bachelor's in business with an HR minor. So there's a lot of things that are working within the scope of what I do. And I think that too, getting hung up on titles with really just your gift is really important, is really kind of like a struggle to some. And it was for me too. It's just like, well, there's all of this, and how can I put this into a little, so it's digestible for people, so to speak. So it's really just getting to understand the limitations that you're withholding right now, that you've been conditioned to have and hold, that are no longer supporting who it is that you're trying to be. And there's an inner conflict happening. We really begin to look at where it began, the root of it, and really reframe it in a way that the mind gets to go, there is something else that's possible besides what we're doing. And when that happens, there's a detach from the loop that's continuing to happen, where new behavior can be formed or new neural pathways can be created in the mind. And the other ones less, less firing together. So really beginning to re-navigate the way of your life in the way that you want to, because most of us grow up the way that our parents want us to, and no fault of our parents, but this is just, again, we end up being in our 30s going, well, who the hell am I? What is it that I want to be doing here? I don't even know, because this is the first time, and this is the demographic and the person that I generally help is between, 30 and 50, who are just like, what the hell, man? And I'm like, yeah, well, this is what happens when we continue to do things that don't feel comfortable, that don't feel right, that feel out of our wheelhouse, but we continue to do it anyways. And we just move farther away from ourselves. Yeah. And so really the returning to self is really the main focus that and it's very objective per individual. So it's subjective in the individual. Sure. So it's really hard for me to say what exactly I do, but it's really getting the person out of the person that they feel that they should be before the world told them how they are, and getting them to where they want to be, and where and safe in that place.
Yeah, it's very much the midlife crisis, depending on where mid in your life it's happening.
Yep. And it's all about, it's really just going like, oh, well, okay, like we all know, we all have these feelings, we all have this inner voice, and many inner voices that are always talking to us and always saying this is what you should be doing, and then the other voice who likes what's happening and who's been with you for so long that this is just consistent and familiar is like, well, no, but we do it this way, right? And so this voice gets shut down, and you're moving towards consistency in what you have been. So it's really about also getting those internal selves or internal voices to begin to communicate at a subconscious level. So you are feeling better about the decisions that you're making. You're feeling more like I can have this voice, but I can also have that one. And I feel confident about where this one's going, instead of being bulldozed by the one that's usually operating or running that executive of your personality and behavior.
Do you feel like people are often second guessing their decisions, their life decisions that they're making? Do you think it has to, like, the mistakes need to happen, or the choices need to happen in order for us to realize, like, I honestly, I only know my own experience, but I feel like, when I was going through my divorce, I thought, I was told, we go to college, we get married, we have children, like this is the narrative. And it's like, never really thought about what I wanted. And also with that whole reverse thing, I remember, I had surgery, found out that I probably couldn't have children. And then I was like, at the time I had thought, I don't really know if I want children. And then I was like, oh, hell yeah, I want children. You're telling me I can't, So
we have this internal dialogue all the time. Yeah. And I think when working with my clients, it's really helpful for them to go, I'm not crazy that there's a million voices going on in my head. You're not. And it's a part of a normal, healthy psyche. And most of them are coping mechanisms that were created in a situation where you needed to have them or do something or feel a certain way so that you could cope with something. Sure. And they've just been with you for most of your life, and they haven't gotten a chance to either share with you how they feel, or they haven't gotten a directive from you that they're no longer needed. Right. So really becoming aware of the internal dialogue that's happening for you is starting the conversation with yourself and the dialogue. If you have this one that's super pushy, no, we have to get up, you can't sit down, you can't relax, you have way too much stuff to do. That's our pusher, right? We really have this, and we have this part of ourselves that helps us get stuff done, which is what we need. But some people's pusher are way more aggressive than other people's pusher. And this has a lot to do with, again, growing up in your environment and how things are conditioned for you. It gets to a point where you want to sit down and watch Netflix and, binge on some popcorn. Like, I'm exhausted. I'd love to. And really having that conversation with, I hear you that we have things to do. let us sit down and watch this movie and eat this popcorn for this next 2 hours, and then we'll start the next task. And usually the pusher will be like, cool, as long as you do it. And again, keeping your word, with the internal dialogue is going to just build more self-trust with yourself, that I can handle this. That when another voice comes in and it's way too, it's the one that says I'm fat, or it's the one that says that you're not enough, that you can't do this, that someone else is getting that position over you. It says, I hear you, and they're pretty good. I mean, they look really qualified, or they look really good, but we're doing our best here, aren't we? It's really having this conversation as same as if you were to have it with a friend who's having a difficult time trying to get through a situation. We just don't do it with ourselves because it's difficult and it's not familiar. No one's just sitting there going like, I talk to myself all the time. I do. Yeah. And it's really healthy.
Yeah. I do too. I found that even like at the grocery store, and I'll look up and I'm like, yeah, I was talking to myself.
Yeah.
Get stuff done.
Exactly. You're like, do I want a salad tonight, or do I want some, do I want some chicken? It's like, well, maybe I don't want either. And it's just like, well, what do you actually want? Right. We're having this dialogue anyways. And there's multiple parts of us that are coming and speaking and talking, all based on our environment. And so, or what we need at the time, that we're in the circumstance that we're in.
Yeah. It's great to, like you said, to question that too, based off your environment. I remember my therapist was talking with me about this, where you're like, I'm very like, was pushed when I was younger to accomplish less of things. So I'm very like, I try not to, but base my worth on the amount of tasks I get done in a day. And she's always like, you have
a tendency to do more.
Yeah. And she's like, and what happens if you don't do that thing? It's like, does it still get done? Yeah. Does it have any bearing on how much you're worth? No, you have to like really be a critical thinker about this conversation and the dialogue that is happening in your head, and where, like, what is the reason for this? And does it serve, is it have truth to it? I think is what.
Exactly. Yeah. And we all have the therapist inside of our mind, which is why all of us are self-healers. We can heal ourselves. We just have to be able to strengthen that part of ourselves. Because most of the time, if you're a pusher, right, if you've been told what to do and really are counting your worth to what you are doing, it's really going to be hard for that part to leave executive, right? Leave your, the really strong part of your personality, or the presence in your day-to-day. It's really going to be hard for it to leave. And it has probably been hard for it to leave over extensive amounts of time. And this little part of you that totally is that you are worthy and you are enough. This is enough being here. We all have that, because that's how we were as babies. We were just like, we were chilling. We were like, this is good. I'm fine here. Like, I'm throwing up all over myself and you're supposed to burp me now. Like we don't end up having these coping mechanisms until we need them. And it's just a matter of kind of coming into, I hear this, I hear you, this part of me that wants to do, this part of me that feels that if doing this will give me worth. I hear you, I hear what you're saying. And I find value in what you're saying, but I also know that doing XYZ, sitting on the couch, is really going to be helpful for our mind and body. Can we sit here right now? Yeah. And most of the time there will be less combative. When we ignore it, it's more combative because it's more present. It's like, excuse me, you're not paying attention to me, So the awareness is always going to be first, again, with yourself and with others, awareness of what's happening, awareness of what you're feeling, and then really moving into how is it that I can move from out of this position into this one. And it's really trying hard not to beat yourself up about the feelings that you're feeling. I shouldn't be feeling this way. It's really going to be difficult for you to begin healing when you're saying, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I shouldn't be, unless it's, of course, detrimental to your health, right? I shouldn't be doing XYZ. Most of the time, we just want to become aware of what it is that we're doing and acknowledge the feeling that we feel. But we also know, right? Kind of like, what else do we know? And really, that's a prompt to open up from where you are. I should be doing this, but I also know, like, this is a really small little thing that you can start to inquire in the mind yourself. But what is also true, or what I also know, or what I've also seen, or what I've also experienced before, right? So getting this these little prompts to open up the scope of your hyper focus and your state of being is going to be really helpful in progressing out of it or working with it.
Do you think that you can be disciplined in your goals and be healing at the same time? Or do you think that there's a process that goes on? Because I feel like a lot of women are healing for, like, they're emotionally eating or those types of behaviors. And I think I'm curious what you think about that process, as far as having the goal and also working with, an eating disorder or disordered eating.
And so the eating part is the surface, right? The regimen and the protocol is the surface. This is the this is what you should be doing at the very end. I do believe that you can do both, because it's this, but again, it depends on everyone's ability to cope with what's happening. Some people need to heal, and some people really need to feel that they are in a safe place without the external and factors that are a part of their normal day to day, that they need that time to be able to reflect and to be able to let go and release and to honor whatever's happening. There's other people who can be very much aware of what's going on, very much, men specifically, because I work with men as well. They're very much, they want to know, what is it that's causing this, right? So once they find out, once that awareness begins to shed light on why they're doing, what the root cause of why they're doing what they're doing, they go straight to work. Well, perfect. I now know what it is, and I don't need to hold on to that any longer, or I can definitely, fix that now, because men are fixers. They love to just go after it right away. And some healers are like that too. Other healers, in that process of healing, and other people in that process of healing are like the ones who really have this contradictory mindset, is that I really want to do this, and I really want to be here, and I really want to get myself healthy. I really want to stop eating this cake at 9 o'clock at night. I really want to, stop eating these cookies in the middle of the night when I wake up. I can't help it, right? But I really want to be healthy, and I really want to have a healthy body, and I really want to, shed some weight, and I really want to feel good and look good for myself. There is this contradictory that's happening within the being, which I think that a lot of fitness coaches would be helpful to know for them, is that it's not really the choice of the conscious choice of the person that's coming to you for help. They're coming to you for help. They want to. So it's not a matter of whether or not they want to, because they've come to you for help, and really coming to you for help is going to be like, dude, thanks for showing up, because that's not one of the hardest parts. They have to pay you. They have to take money out of their pockets to pay you for a protocol, to pay you for a program, to pay you for accountability. So as a coach, you're able to see what is basically can be attained for them, because a part of them really wants it. But another part of them is when something's happening in their life, or, based on routine too, because routine and habitual, tend to be a considering factor in this too, is they have to begin to become aware of what it is that they're feeling when they go reach for the cake. What's actually happening in their environment. Do they feel like they have control? Do they feel like they're losing control because they're dropping so much weight? Do they feel like they're losing control because they gave you the authority to tell them what to do, and then they're like, whoa, and again, this is their reaction, and their response is all triggered based on what they know to be true, and usually that's all rooted in past experience. A lot of people that want to keep the weight on, but consciously want it to lose it or drop it, and we use that word again, they find that their bodies having the extra weight is protective for them. I deal with a lot of trauma-based, weight loss, which is going back to a circumstance of basically why they can't lose weight, or why they can't stick to a program, or why they're struggling to stay consistent and dedicated. It's not that they don't want to, they do. It's just that there's a loop happening, right? Is that like one experience of some male or female looking at them when they were, 5 or 6 years old, just starting to become a woman, and going, looking at them in a distasteful way, made them feel that if I was bigger, that this wouldn't happen, and I wouldn't feel this way, or I wouldn't be subjected to that type of thing. Even sexual trauma too, right? We like to keep the weight on because we don't want people to look at us, or we want to stay safe. So the weight might be a safety thing for some people. It's a way for them to feel safe inside their body, because at one point they didn't. And again, this is not always correlated with sexual trauma, but any experience that would cause them to feel outside themselves or uncomfortable in their body, the weight would then be that thing that they're holding on to so that they can feel safe inside their body, which is, again, they don't know, they're probably not aware of these things as they're moving into this kind of path of trying to lose or drop the weight. But it tends to be the root cause that's continuing to perpetuate the behavior. So we look at the behavior first and what's happening, and then really look at, what's happening under the conscious awareness. What is the root cause in the subconscious that's causing you to loop the same behavior? And more or less, you'll find that the feelings that were felt at this experience are the same feelings that are usually felt here, where the cake is really good, right? So it's very interesting in that sense. So I would always encourage every coach to, if it continues to be an issue for that person, to really begin to explore below the surface. And it's not that they really don't want to stay consistent. It's that there's something else that's happening that's underneath, that's saying, you need to have the cake. We need to keep this weight.
Yeah. Asking why the behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So fascinating.
I know. I could go on. And of course, these examples are just like, it's broad, and it could mean very much different things too. Like, a parent really loving the child at a much larger weight, and really enjoying giving them food. And every time they feel unloved, or every time they, they'll go to eat food because that's how mom and dad made them feel loved. Right. So there's a lot of different ways that it can show up, and it's very subjective to everybody.
Well, this is what I think is fascinating about going to therapy, because you have someone who's going to help you dig deep and go, what happened to you at this age, or what happened to you at this age, or what was your family dynamic like? And nurture is incredibly powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
sometimes that's all a person needs. And I wouldn't say this is like for everybody, but most of the time when people feel supported and safe in whatever environment that they are in, that they'll want to explore. It's really hard for someone that feels unsafe in their body to be constantly ridiculed, but that's probably what they're used to, right? They want that certain thing that they're looking for again, but it doesn't make them feel any better, right? So I think, again, really just being there as a support and really inquiring, what about this behavior makes you feel good? Or what are the feelings that you're feeling during the times that you're eating cake? Because it's most of the time, it's probably a blackout session where they just eat, and then they afterwards they feel guilty and shameful because they know that they shouldn't be eating, but there was something that was triggered to help them. And I always want to say help. And I know this is not conducive to the behavior, but the parts inside of you are always trying to help you, even if it's with alcohol, and if it's with cake, overeating, like it's really trying to soothe you. It's trying to help you. But the part has its role reversed and wrong, in the sense as to the behavior that ends up being a problem.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. Well, it is, it's like how the body can sometimes, overcompensate for wounds or whatever, and create scars that need to be, removed because they're more damaging. So, I mean, really, our minds and our bodies are just incredible.
They are. And your body holds trauma too. So it's not just the mind that holds the trauma, your body does as well. Think about the last time you tried to hold in a cry. How much that hurt your chest, or how like much it really required a lot of energy for you to hold it in. That energy has to go somewhere. And if it's not out, it's going somewhere inside. And the longer that is kept inside, and the more that you keep trying hard not to cry in front of people or behind closed doors or with yourself, it starts to become this huge energy that's going to radiate within a certain area of the body that's going to start to cause pain and illness, within, or I guess the systems to respond in kind of a havoc way, because that energy is not supposed to be stuck inside. We're supposed to be able to release our tears. That's a form of healing too. So it's all very connected. And I think that the mind body is not separate. They're separate entities, but that they work together to create a whole being, along with spirituality and right, emotional, so, having that emotional body too. Your mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional bodies are all separate entities, which means that they require separate healing.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Do you, how important do you think human connection is? In this day and age where we are supposedly more connected than ever via technology, we've got people that are more lonely and more addicted than they've ever been. So do you have any thoughts on that?
It is a basic human need. It's primitive, right? Is that when we, back in the day, way back then, right? Is that if we weren't part of our tribe, if we weren't connected with our people, that we were forced to fend by ourselves, and most likely will die, right? So there is a primitive desire for us to be connected to people, to feel connected and associated with people or persons. And I do believe that just by being in the presence of someone who is supportive and powerful, is just naturally healing your nervous system energetically. And that's why you walk into a room and someone's, feeling a certain way, and you're like, I don't know why they made me feel a certain way. But I don't feel comfortable right now. And they haven't said a word to you, but you can feel this energy kind of moving back and forth between, it's speaking, right? It's not speaking with words, but it's speaking energetically. And so, yeah, I think the connection is most important. It allows us to see things outside of our perspective. It allows us to view ourselves in a very different light if we choose to, and really begin to receive just, again, a different type of scope. It's like having, like, you and a friend looking through a telescope, and I'm looking through it one way, and then the other person's looking at it through another way, and they see a star or something else that's magical that I didn't see. And I could totally sit there and go, I don't see that, and I can continue to be in my own way, but I can also, really be able to open up my scope to really look for that beautiful star that is, opening up my scope to new stuff. And really that analogy is meant for us, that's other person looking through us is seeing very different things that might be really beautiful that we don't get to see. And I do think that human connection is really important. To the latter of social media, I think people feel more connected than they really are to some of these profiles and these people. And it's really the double-edged sword, because it's meant for connection, but it's, I guess, to the degree in which you feel connected. Is your perspective or your scope of being connected and feeling connected just liking a photo? Having not knowing, anything that's going on in that person's life that might be real or false. Is this something that helps you feel connected, or is this your reality of connectedness? And so what tends to happen is, like, there's this surface feeling of what is connectedness, or how you feel you are connected. And when the person that you felt that you were connected with because you were liking, and they were only showing you a part or what they wanted you to see, is coming up, short in a way that they're not the person that they've portrayed themselves to be, or, in that sense, it's like, a gut shot to these people who feel that, I was trusting you to be super, honest with me, and that's not how it is. So it's like this false perception of, and I think that's what social media is able and capable to do.
Yeah.
Awesome for business, because someone can totally be like, this is an awesome business, and here's, you need this in your life. This little thing is going to do awesome things for you. But I think when it comes to human interaction, it's very, it's that double-edged sword, because you really don't know unless you are communicating on the level that we are, or, via direct message, someone that you can send a DM to that say, I'm struggling a little bit, even if you don't know the person, and at least having a response to be acknowledged. But it really, again, it's going to compare to how a person feels connected.
Yeah.
So it's very much subjective to everyone.
Yeah. I was thinking about how like if you went to see a speaker and you're a person in an audience, you might have left that experience saying, oh, that I really connected with that person. They really touched my life. Right. But what you really gathered from that was like knowledge and an experience. It wasn't really a personal human connection with that person. And I feel like it's one of the downfalls of technology, because, there's like, knowledge is fleeting, and it's not something that is, it's not going to, like, I don't know. I just feel like, there's this expectation, and then, it's like, then that's gone. It's kind of like the same as, the pleasure that you get from, eating your cake right there, and then it is gone. And then that experience.
Exactly.
And,
and if you
and you're lonely. Well, I was thinking, and then you're lonely again, because you really haven't connected. You've just gotten some more information or something like that,
Yeah. And I want to touch on what you had said there, because it was really important. Again, it's very much subjective to the person's reality of what connectedness means. But if we look at connection, it simply means point to point, right? And so if we can go into social media with a perspective as, this person is serving this, or is connecting me to this, and that served me really well, or this person is not really conducive to, my health and well-being, that I don't really need to stay connected. So if you really think about it as you're just connecting little pieces to people, that they're serving you in some of their posts might not be, taking it as a informational based, and very much individual to that post, or very much individual to that live stream, or very much individual to that public speaker. Like, this one time gave me all of this that makes me feel really good. If we're looking at it from one time perspective, connectedness, we're never really let down, because we're looking for things that are serving for us. We're not going, this person is meant to serve me. We're looking at it as, I'm looking for content, and I'm looking for people to follow that are going to be really helpful for my growth and well-being, or really my entertainment, or whatever it is that you're on social media for. So maybe the perspective to have this be a relational where I want a relationship with this person. I think people maybe seeing or mistrusting this kind of ideal of, this is a relationship between this person and myself. Rather, let it be just a connection, right? Point to point, that that post was awesome. Made me feel real good today. Leave the profile, look for more that's making you feel that way, and really have that connectedness with social media be point to point connection.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's perfectly stated. I think people walk into it thinking, these are my friends, these are my relationships, these are my connections. But going back to what I said before, we need these, these one-on-one, dive into this conversation, human connections, that's much more fulfilling. A relationship really is something that's ongoing. So
yeah, it's not just like your marriage, or your actual boyfriend, girlfriend. The relationship can be a simple partnership, or a simple union of two people being in a same state of being, or a supportive state of being for a short period of time or a long period of time. It's really quite funny how we kind of put this is what a relationship is, and it's very much open, and it can be way more if we allow it to be, but this ongoing thing, or it can't be, it doesn't need to be, right? Because some relationships serve a purpose and are only with you for a short period of time, and that's okay. reaching out to someone on social media that you feel connected to, or that their post was really helpful, sending a DM, and with the intention only that this was really helpful for me, so I want to share it with that person, not with the intent to receive anything back, even though that is our natural innate desire to want to be heard and seen. You're acknowledging yourself first to say that this made me feel really good, thank you so much for sharing. And you can reply or not reply, you don't need to say that, but in a way that I just want to let you know how that touched me today, and how that inspired me today. Your response is not going to inspire me. What you posted was. So thank you for posting that.
Yeah. That just made me think of how much we place our happiness in expectation. And I was thinking about this the other day about why it is that so many people are unhappy. And I think it does tie into the whole technology, social media aspect of expectation of where we are thinking we're supposed to be in life, or where, we talked about earlier, where we thought the story was going to take us. And then that comparison that happens a lot through social media as well, especially I think for, anyone who's in a crisis type of a situation, it can really perpetuate that type of stuff. So
totally. And your happiness starts where you are. So it's not your external factors, meaning people, meaning things, doing things, is really just going to enhance the feeling of happiness. If you are not feeling happy and content within your being, that I'm enough for myself, I'm enough for the world, that I show up every morning just, excited for what might be possible for me today. That excitement alone generates more happiness. And then you're looking for happiness throughout the day. And when you find it, again, awareness, I'm thankful for this post, or I'm thankful for that interaction, even though it had nothing to do with me. Really beginning to see things and feel things very differently when you're open to, when you feel it deep within your being, where you're content and you are so good within yourself and so safe that you can enjoy things. But it's really hard for some people who feel outside themselves to really find happiness within themselves, right? So coming back to you is really going to create a better life for you when you wake up in the morning and everything that you kind of roll into.
Yeah. So what is a little bit of advice that you would talk about if, how social media is, you get your critics, what's your just sort of analogy of, or analysis of kind of what's going on with those types of people, and how should we respond to them?
I'm just going to share with you personally how it evolved for me. I think when I was having a lot of insecurity, even bodybuilding, because you're being forced to look at your body in a way that you never have, very particular. And I would just use that as an example, but I've been insecure my whole life, in different ways. Body image was really not so much of a struggle for me, but feeling worthy and feeling, that I was enough for anything, or that I was doing enough for anybody, was really kind of a struggle for me. And because I felt that way about myself, anyone's response, even the good ones, they're like, oh, like, that's awesome, I can't wait. I could have been like, maybe I could have done that better, or I should have done that differently, and I'm constantly just looking at what it is that's going on, that's me, that's all wrong with me, right? So my reactive response was internal, based on even a response in general. So the harsher ones, obviously they hurt way more, because I was way more reactive and way more sensitive at the time, because inside I already felt that wasn't a good exercise, or that wasn't something good to post, or maybe I should have worded it differently. I'm already thinking those things. So that negative comment is reinforcing what I already believe about myself, which is not much, right? So I think when you're experiencing this negative reaction from you, because you get to be aware of what's happening within yourself if you are choosing to. If you're reactive just to comments, right, you're going to have, all it's going to be is an argument, and then you're just going to feel worse about yourself, right? So why is it that I'm feeling this way? As whatever that might look or feel like for you, is that like, I feel like I'm doing this wrong, and I feel like I could have done it better, and I feel like I could have been, whatever that might be. The awareness and the acknowledgement is going to be, again, your first step in going, well, this was pretty good. I mean, like, there's other people also that like really like it, so like it can't be that bad, right? So like you're starting that dialogue. But I think once you heal a lot of the underlying root causes of why you're feeling unworthy and why you're feeling undeserving of praise and why you're feeling that it's not good enough.
Yeah.
Once you heal those, it stops looping and you stop being reactive, or you stop being triggering to some of these things. So now when I see, and I'm not all healed, okay, there's things that have still come up for me. They come up less for me, but and of course I'm more aware of them now, but it's a lot easier to move through. Now that you're just kind of in this consistency. It's just like working out. When the first 2 weeks suck, you're sore, it's miserable, and then of course you just get it and your body starts to change, right? Same thing with healing. It's the same type of way. Now when I see a post that is a silly comment, I feel a certain way for the person that's posting that. I feel that something, because I know my reactive response way back when had to do with what I was feeling inside. So like when I see these things, I feel for the person who is behind that phone, or behind that laptop, or wherever they are, in that they had to say something, and it's more than likely to be seen and heard, and they want your response. So oftentimes I will leave it there, and just so that they can be seen, right? And even if it's in a negative way, they're still being able to be seen, because more than likely they'll go back and see if you responded, or see if their post is still there and you haven't deleted it. So it's really that one little thing that you do might be really helpful for the other person, that even if, oh, they didn't ignore me and they're not even talking to me, what's going on here? They didn't block me. What's going on here? And of course, if it perpetuates with the same person over time, then you can reach out and just be like, inquire about, what is with all the things. But seeing that come into play on your social feed, it's always going to be, you're always going to have this response. So, oh, that doesn't feel good for me. Of course, someone's being rude and mean. Of course, that doesn't feel good. But when you are less reactive, because you are less attached to what this means, then you are more able to consciously, stay in your rational and logic mind, rather flipping straight to emotional and reactive. You're able to go think rationally about this. Well, this person might be really struggling with something, and I want them to be seen so they can stay here. If they want to be seen, they want to be heard in the way that is negative, then that's the way that they are seen. And so they can stay here, and other people will see them that way, right? So, but to them, it also could mean that there's someone that cares, that someone, and it's a roundabout way of some people being so mean and so rude to you, but there is always underneath that pain, there's always a reason. And most of the time it's really just, wasn't their fault to begin with. Now, the behavior as an adult, it's your responsibility to change. But underneath that pain, there's likely root of something deeper. So I'm always very mindful about those things now.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I would say 5 or 6 years ago, when life was a little bit more struggle, that I was much more reactionary to a lot of those types of things. And it depends on the day. Because if you're having a bad day, all it takes is a comment to be like, the straw that breaks.
Broke it. Yeah. Yeah. Right. And but also too, it's also your responsibility to become aware of what's triggering for you and how you'd like to respond. Right. We're not going to be like, we're not always going to respond in the way that we want to, but you can always pause before you respond. And you can always pause and go, oh, this is so effing irritating. Or are you kidding me right now? Like, however you want to respond is you should have that response, and then pause for a moment so you can recalibrate back into logic instead of rolling with the emotion that just was triggering for you. And then decide how you want to approach this. Is this going to be helpful for me to argue with this person, or would it be helpful, for me if I did XYZ? Yeah. And you get to choose that. And the more choices made over time that are in that same manner, the easier it's going to become for you just to be in that sense of response, not reactive.
Yeah. Repeating that, like you said, it does take time and takes time and practice.
It does. And I won't say it's so easy, but it doesn't need to be hard either. I think whenever you go into anything with a mentality of this is going to be hard, it will be. Again, your mind is listening. So if this is going to be hard, your mind's like, perfect, I will make sure I do everything to make sure that this is so difficult for you. It's doing what you asked it to do, which is its job. So again, that's how our words too are very important, in the way that we say this is just too hard, or this is going to last forever, or this is killing me, right? These are really okay, perfect. I'm just going to make sure that you feel dreadful every time that you do XYZ, right? Your mind is meant to help you kind of, it's the command. It's listening, it's waiting, and then it's talking to the body about what we need to do in order to get that done.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with this study, but if I can find it, I'll link it in the show notes, because I think it's so important about just telling about the power of the brain. But there was a study, they had people that were drinking milkshakes, 2 different types of milkshakes, and the one was very calorie laden, and it was labeled as such, and or it was labeled as calorie laden, but it was a diet milkshake. And then the other was the diet milkshake, and they had people drink them, and the people that thought they were drinking this high calorie fattening milkshake, they measured the body's response to it, and it actually responded as it was eating something that was, high in calories and fat. So
it's a placebo effect.
Yes. Yeah. And the brain is just, like you said, I think just the power of words is just really, really important in what you're telling yourself. That narrative is.
Yeah, it's like what we see with, that's why hypnotherapy works in a way that it does. And why it's so impactful with pain reduction too, is because what you're telling yourself, your body is going to respond to, is that this is so painful, I cannot bear this. It's going to increase the pain. And studies have shown that over the course of years, actually decades, that the mind's response to the thought and the picture of it being, you experiencing the pain, having it be extravagantly, exaggerated, it's going to increase the pain. So rather, in those situations, right? But it's a placebo effect. The thought alone of it just being, what it is, what it says it is, right? You don't even know. And your body, your mind doesn't even know yet. But what you're saying to it is that it is helpful, or it is not helpful. And your mind is like, perfect. This is what I'm going to do in response to what is helpful. And this is how I'm going to try to, we're going to disrupt all of this that is unhelpful for you. So it's all science. That's all been science based, and epigenetics, and how we can, that our mind is like a sponge now. I mean, we know that. So it's very adaptable. It's very capable of change. It just requires the effort and also the thought to create those new neural pathways in a way that you want it to go. But your mind and body work together. So it responds to the commands of whatever it is that you might be telling it.
That's so crazy. So I'm sure it's individual, but what are some of the things that you have healed people with through hypnotherapy, and how many sessions does it take normally? And is this coupled with also therapy as well? How do you do that?
Yeah. So everyone is very subjective. So they often come to me with similar problems. So like anxiety, or people pleasing, or fear of judgment, or fears of not being enough. Mainly around those, struggling with depression, really struggling to see who they are. Any of the issue, the issue is that surface issue. And it's a surface issue because it's been labeled so. It's that you see a bunch of posts all the time that your anxiety feels like this, right? And your depression feels like this. And while those symptoms might be true in relation to those illnesses, right? Most of the time, hypnotherapy uncovers that the real root cause of that issue is something very subjective to the person's life, right? It's very much something happened within the person's life that's causing them to feel themselves to be inadequate, or unworthy, or not enough, or be afraid to speak in public, to be afraid to just have friends, or why they're not deserving to have friends, or just relationships. And relationships are another big thing too, is I don't deserve to have this person, and I need this person to be mean to me in order for them to love me. There's a lot of different scenarios that are kind of rolled in, to this aspect of symptoms, but most of the symptoms are very much just kind of, I guess symptom based, the way that it is seen in normal, your depression, your anxiety, your fears, that sort of thing. So that's what they come to me for, but they ultimately realize that it's a lot deeper than that, and it's very subjective to them. So the first session is really discovery. The first session is to discover what these symptoms that you're having in relation to what you feel. What do they look like? What do they sound like? How do they show up? How often do they show up? Is really kind of that intro to figure out the little pieces that we need, because really it's not about this. It's about the actual root cause that's causing all of this that we really want to figure out. And most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, it has really nothing to do with what they think it has to do with. So, which is really quite funny and also very insightful, right? Because I would have never thought that little situation that was what I think is right now is meaningless, that would make me feel that shameful at 5 years old, which is, making me struggle with, opening myself up to someone in a relationship today. Right. So they're able to see this become aware, right? And ultimately the awareness leads to a choice, is that you're no longer that young person. So there's a lot of inner child work that happens with this as well. You're no longer that person. You're no longer in that situation. And how would you like to handle that now? And again, the mind is going, all I wanted you to do is see the pain that I was feeling at that age. And all I wanted you to do was notice, what was happening, and to acknowledge that my feelings were valued and valid in that moment. And all I wanted you to do was just to be here with me in that moment. And we return to ourselves way younger as the adult, with way more knowledge, understanding, and wisdom to wrap ourselves up and go, I'm becoming the parent to you now. I'm becoming the model that you need. And I will always keep you safe. And so this ends up getting to be a decision for the person. So that being said, there could be a few different root causes, but if you get down to the root cause, basically the activating events, so similar events that might reactivate, similar feelings of the root cause, you really just need that one. So if the person is able to kind of move through that experience, move through the feelings of that experience that they were not able to have at the moment, right, which is what we call an abreaction, that is releasing, that is healing, that is letting the mind also know that we no longer need to loop, and that we are way older, we have way more support, that things are very different now. And again, this is how moving on from that type of attachment. So we're releasing the attachment to what was, and we're just moving into a space that feels clear, that feels lighter. And so some people do experience it in just one session. And they tend to notice that so say they came in for anxiety about social settings. They come in, they're anxious about being around people. They'll also start to notice that, their fears about speaking in general, or their fears about sharing emotion, or their fears about, getting into a relationship, they start to notice that all of those start to alleviate because they're all attached to the same root cause. So 1 to 2 sessions, and you get people that come back for different things. Like, I now want to work on this. Now I want to work on that. And that's really how the evolution of healing works, which is wonderful. Like I'm feeling better here now. And this is, what I'd like to work on now, but it's all subconscious, meaning that it's really operating beyond conscious control. It's reactive, it's responsive. And it's doing its job to keep you safe most of the time. Yeah. So, but we just want to identify what it is, so that you can have this. It's basically an enlightenment moment, and you get to witness, and you also get to rescue. And it's like you're your own hero.
And how is the
loving it? I'm in a place where you gotta I feel like this is really great. Honesty is really going to be your always best policy within yourself. If you can't be honest with yourself about things that you've gone through, things that you've done, like there's that, again, you're moving farther away from the person that you are as a whole, which is, we make mistakes, we make choices, we make choices with the best information that we have at the time, and who we are at the time. And so I think accountability for that is just always going to be that's just a part of the story. It's not who you are.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So having that be, a part of my value system now is really just being honest, with people and with myself. I believe, with pregnancy, we struggled for 3 years to get pregnant. And we had 2 different doctors telling us that we would have to, we would need their help, 2 different procedures to be able to have a child, which was really hard news. But I refused to accept that. And I prayed a lot about, God knows the desires of our hearts. And I didn't want to take that into my own hands to say that, okay, it's my time now. I want this baby now. That this is just going to work for me. I had a lot of trauma that I had to look at, that I was refusing to look at for all of these years. Associations with and attachments to my family trauma growing up, and sexual trauma in my past. And I believe that all really had a lot to do with my inability to get pregnant subconsciously. And so I chose at the time that we were looking at the different doctors to go see, I chose in that moment, again, choices. You can choose to do anything, whatever feels good. And it didn't feel good for, me in that moment, that it just wasn't, I didn't want to put this in my own hands. And I'm going to do what it takes now to look at the stuff that I'm refusing to look at, that are holding a lot of space in that area, down in the root, and really begin to become aware of it. And it was hard, because nobody likes to look at the things that, are where you suffered. But in the moments of suffering, there are learning moments, and there's just this reconnection back with yourself after you've kind of explored those, and this kind of healing that happens, and this free flowing just movement outside, like stagnation that was stuck, that feels heavy. It just kind of moves out. And I really focused hard on healing with hypnotherapy, different modalities within the aspect for mind and body and nervous system regulation, and really focused on an entire month of that. It was pretty terrible month. And it was probably one of the months that you didn't see me on social media, because I was just completely just gone. It was a lot to kind of look at. And within that next month, we were pregnant. Yeah. So it was pretty amazing. And also just like you having this kind of disbelief that we have the tools to be able to heal and open up space for what it is that we want. We just have to do it.
Yeah.
So pregnancy has been, like, the journey to pregnancy and then being pregnant has all been this kind of just, whoa, this kind of whirlwind, and I think pregnancy in itself, I won't get too much into this because I do want to write about it eventually. I do think pregnancy in itself calls for us to heal even more. When you're pregnant, there's this life inside of you now that's calling you to look at, how you are going to be as a mother, which also is reflective of your past, and how you're going to be as the dynamic in family, which also is a reflection of the past. And I think a lot of women are struggling to cope with what's showing up for them. So it's really shoving it back down, and it ends up being in this really dark place. And I don't know how to deal with this. And it's really it feels like depression. It feels like high anxiety. It feels like I can't do this. And I believe that it's a call for healing, so that you are in a place where you can be the best person you can be for this person that is coming into the world. And this soul energy is just bringing it up, so that it says, I don't want to deal with this. Please don't make me, deal with these unconscious patterns of yours. Please look at this so that I don't have to,
Yeah.
So that's now. that was actually the first trimester, because it was definitely, hormones are definitely, obviously involved in it, but I do think that it is more than hormones. I do think that it is a call to heal, and just a surface of all the things that need to be looked at that are not meant to be carried into the next phase of being a parent. So that's been like the first part of my pregnancy, which was really quite tough. And now we're second trimester, and now we're feeling awesome. I mean, there's still stuff that comes up. And of course, you know, there are fears and insecurities about what that might look like, but it's also, you get the choice to go, that's not going to be how things are. And that's not how I am. And even though that was happened, or that had happened, that is not what's going to happen, right? You get the choice.
I think that, I mean, you are the environment for your child, so you don't want to create a toxic environment for your child. And I 100%, I 100% agree with you. I was going to say, I remember that I had commented on one of your Instagram posts that I feel like your birth of your child is the birth of your second life. And it
big time. I feel that.
Yeah. It's going to be amazing.
I feel that. I feel that so much. I feel like he's already, like, you know, there was a sense of calmness and sense of kindness and a sense of gentleness that I haven't felt within myself. I mean, I don't know if I ever have. I can't consciously recall of me feeling this way. Yeah. I think that there's, when you're aware of some of the things that this little thing is already serving for you, there's whoa, you know, the connection already begins to happen there, and you begin to see things very differently, if you choose to. And I always want to make that very known. It's a choice. It's always a choice. You know, it's such a beautiful connection, that he started, because I didn't feel connected to this pregnancy, even though it's something that I wanted. I feel like I was in disbelief when we were pregnant, because I was like, how can this happen after 3 years? And now it just doesn't make sense. Why is this all happening right now? And then of course, the part of me that was coping with not getting pregnant, just being like, okay, Stephanie, we got to lock this tears up this month. You know, we're not pregnant. We got to get you doing some more things, you know, get back into work a little harder. Some things, that coping mechanism was still present when I became pregnant. So I was really struggling with this disbelief of actually being pregnant and being able to fully enjoy it. And that was just a really talk with the part of me that was wanting to be still an executive after 3 years of coping every month. So just that conversation needed to take place. But it was just, I just feel like it is already healing. It is already doing the work of wonder in myself. And I just cannot wait to see what he does in this world. And I'm so excited to just support him in whatever that is.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I can say from experience that it's an incredible journey. One that I didn't really think that I wanted, but
oh, yay.
Well, until I was told that I couldn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, it's that how awesome is our mind? How powerful is our abilities to be able to, make the change that we need to in order to be who we want to and have what we want to. And it's really, we are incredible. We are very powerful beings. If we choose to. I feel like that's a trait. That's like the tagline of this, is if we choose to, because it is the power of choice. And even when you feel like you don't have a decision to make, I mean, there always is one in your thoughts. So
this is, I have a special place in my heart for moms and for babies. It's such a gift that we have been given to be able to create life. It's just so miraculous. I just can't,
Dude, I look at women and I'm like, we're freaking awesome. Like, what? And then I look down and I'm like, what is happening? Like, there is a one of my friends, she says, I can't take credit for it, but she's like, basically you're 3D printing a human. Like, what is happening in there? We are amazing.
Yeah.
And that connection just makes me feel so much more special.
And at the time that you can see, like, I don't know how many times you've had ultrasounds or whatever, but it's mind-boggling how quickly you have a fully formed human being that you can't even feel inside.
Nope. I mean, it was like, it was about 3.5 months where I was like she's rolling her, and he's karate he's like moving all around. He's a very active baby. Like, he's moving all of the time. And he's, he's karate chopping, and I'm like, that's happening inside of me right now. She's like, yeah, it's literally like, what is happening? And I don't feel it. She's like, oh, you will.
Yeah.
I certainly do now. And he's so active. And that's really where the connection too begins to form even greater, because you get to just, put your hands down on his feet or his elbows or his shoulders or whatever's, or his head, whatever's rolling around underneath your hand at that time. And it's just like, oh, hello there, you little active little being, it's so great.
Building community. What do you think about women who are, deciding to get into competing later in life? What would you say to them about that? Like, yeah, what would you say about that? I think that happens a lot. And me knowing like your stories and other people's stories, I do have an opinion about that, but I'm curious what you think about it.
Well, I'm curious as to what you think about it first. I'll tell you, and it really, really correlates with much of the same as what we've been talking about in terms of the intention. But I really want to hear what you think about it first, because you are actually in it now still more than like I'm in it, but I'm very separate from it. So I don't, I'm actually not aware of the actual like how these older women are actually perceiving themselves as they enter, and I actually work with, mostly, 40s and 50. I work with like these women. So I know where they're at. I know where they were when we started 5 years ago, and I know where they are now. So I actually starting with someone new that is that age, I'm unfamiliar with that. So what's happening?
Well, it just seems like, you get a lot of women who are, you'll see this even if you go to like local bodybuilding shows. You'll get some woman who's on stage who's in, 40 to 50 years old, who decided to do a bodybuilding competition for, a bucket list or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that a can of worms that you think that somebody should open at that age? That's what I'm curious, because I think especially with the birth of social media, you get a lot more women who are, 35 to 45 years old, let's say, or maybe even older, getting involved in fitness and bodybuilding, and they lose some weight, they start to build some muscle. And for some reason, it always seems to go to, I want to do a bodybuilding competition. And as somebody who I'm not coaching anyone anymore. I just, I have a full-time job and I love doing this podcast, and the one-on-one coaching with people is very time consuming and draining. And
very much so. Yeah.
If you do it well, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, I tend to, ask people why they want to do a show. And I feel like the answers are pretty vague. And then I don't always delve so deeply into it because I'm not willing to take them through that journey. So
sure. Yeah.
I'm not going to say I don't care, but I want them to think about why it is that they want to do the show,
Yeah.
But knowing the levels of, expectation and where people are coming from a lot of times with weight loss, shedding weight.
Yeah. It's just, again, it's that I do it too. I still have that, it's conditioned. So like I still have that, like I'm like, oh no, but yeah, I get you.
Weight, getting involved in something that's new and exciting. And it's like, I always say, why don't you want to work on your best, fittest self long term rather than crashing into a show for like, what is it for? You want some recognition? Do you want someone to acknowledge that you did a great job? It's a lot of, you can see my head goes in a million different directions. Trying to figure out the reasoning behind it, but I just don't think, I guess my bottom line attachment would be, I just don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah. And honestly, if you ask someone why they want to do a bodybuilding show, half of them won't have an answer for you. Right. They'll say, I want to, and that'll be the end of it. That's not really so much of an answer, especially for a coach who's trying to look at a whole body living and a whole body. When you're looking at, for me as a coach, it's really important to train And again, I've been working with these girls for 5+ years, and they have built consistently over the years, and this is how long it does take, right? So but I'm very open and honest with them about, all of that, and of course getting their expectations down to a certain level of where it is that they're wanting to go. And most of them initially, the first start is just, I want to do the show. I want to get up there. And I'll do whatever it takes in 12 weeks. And I'm looking at their body. I'm like, even if you had something, it would be like a 20-week at least. You're starting to see this kind of this need and desire for a quick fix, and this need and desire to have something immediate, and this need and desire to have. There is this like a timeline for them, and I need it now. Okay, and it's very they won't know. They won't know why. So when you ask someone like, I don't know, I want it though. So okay. And it's the same reason why people have behavioral issues like eating the cake, right? It stems all the way back from something that means way more to them, that is underneath their conscious awareness. So them saying, even you saying, like, do you want more acknowledgement? Is it something that whatever that might be, the person will consciously say no.
Well, I just want to clarify, I don't ever say that to them. This is just me trying to figure out.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm using your reference. I'm using the analogy, right, or the metaphor. And so, and when that happens though, and I honestly, people do ask that, because I like way before I started all this too. It's just like, hey, what is your intention? It's just like, well, what do you want this for? These are really great questions to ask, because you're getting to know the client at a little deeper level. And when they say, I don't know, that means there's something that is perpetuating underneath that is pushing them to go towards this, and they consciously don't know why they're choosing it. They consciously don't know why this force is being like so aggressive in a way that I need to have this now, that they do not know why they are going into it. And this can happen later in life too, when you see these older women competing. It's because if you could deconstruct what happens from start of prep to end of prep, okay, what is the end result? They're on stage.
Yeah.
Right. They're on stage in front of people, like showing off their body, strutting being in heels, feeling sexy, right? Whatever that might look like for them, feeling strong, however that is viewed to them, right? If you deconstruct it, there's a reason why they want to be up there. Right. There's a reason why they want to be seen. There's a reason why they want to be seen in front of people that they don't know, in a bikini, half naked, in heels, putting themselves forward in this beautifully sexual way. Right. But you start to see it with someone being way more sexy, starting to really get into it, and you're going, why? Right? If this is for physique wise, and with us figures, very much like robotic, because all they're looking at is the muscle, right? All they're looking at is a structure. But you get some that really enjoy being in front of that spotlight, and really enjoy being in front of people, because maybe for the first time that they're actually being seen naked in their mind for who they are, in this bikini. It has nothing to do with show. It has everything to do with the way that they've been really urging to have this sense of whatever it is that they're looking for, this feeling to have on stage, to be seen as themselves for the first time in front of everyone, raw naked, in a way. Obviously you're not naked, but you're in a bikini. You're half naked. But they're seeing themselves as something that is greater than they've ever felt or experienced before. And this feeling is what drives the next show. Mm. It's what drives the next, it drives the next prep. It drives the next, and that they're chasing. This is a chase that, a race to the finish line that doesn't exist.
Right.
Because they're chasing this need and desire, that is not being fulfilled within their being, and they have to do something in order to get there. Right. So it doesn't matter what age it's happening at. And of course, even when you have, women who've experienced this kind of long life of just giving to others or serving to others, or being in terrible relationships and getting a divorce and not having another partner who really appreciates them as a whole being, or, has cheated on them, and they're finding themselves way more broken in the perspective of their bodies and their mind about what their worth is, because that's like, well, that intimacy was with someone else, and that means that he likes her body instead of mine. There's like underneath all of the surface stuff is there's something really perpetuating this need and desire to be seen in a way that makes them feel proud. And it might not always be in the best way, right? It might not always be the loudest person in the room, might be the most annoying, but all they're trying to do is be seen by people. And when you look at that, it's like they're not trying to be annoying, they're really just trying to be heard, right? So you're seeing kind of the same thing with it, no matter what age. I think that the expectations and the demands of the lifestyle is not something that they care about. They see this as like,
it's not the people that, I'm not to say that, we're all messed up in some sort of way, right?
For sure.
We've all had some sort of whatever. So I'm not going to say that people who get involved in bodybuilding have some sort of special flaw that other people don't have. Everything manifests itself in a different way. And I know a lot of people who I would say probably are not nearly as effed up as the rest of us, who are going through it and have a love for lifting weights. And, but even that, like I could say, like when I was going through my divorce, I went back to what was a time when I felt good about myself and strong. And that was lifting weights before swim practice, which I wasn't really supposed to be doing. And my coach would be like, get in the pool, Deborah Jean. So, I go back to school, I start lifting weights, and, then started to discover this bodybuilding community. But I loved the training. I still love the training. And, and that was, to me, it was like, I was going through my divorce. I wanted to feel strong. So I was doing things that made me feel strong. Whether that was good or bad, it did help me through this time.
Well, you're coping. Coping.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's, and you see just the normal, it's not just with bodybuilders. I mean, you see the people who are in the gym constantly for hours, and you're like, there is a healthy boundary between movement of the body and overworking because you're coping. Right. But you are starting to see that when people are moving into the space because they are trying to avoid, they're trying to deal, they're trying to regain a sense of control, that it just ends up spiraling even worse as you're moving into it, because this industry, and it can be very much like not just with bodybuilding, but like when you're even in work, right? This me versus me mentality, you see it in everyone's posts. Me versus me, me versus me, me versus me. That is not a healthy relationship with yourself. This me versus me competitiveness is pushing your body when your body says, no, please, I'm done today. We've done enough. We've had enough challenges today. This mentality is going to move you farther away from this peace and happiness that maybe the gym was once giving you, because you're moving into this competitiveness. Now you're pushing your body when it doesn't want to, and you're also making your mind also go in, and like we were doing this. You're forcing the mind and you're forcing the body to do it. It's not healthy to have this me versus me mentality. You see it with people who are in business and are constantly working. There is something that's underneath the need to constantly work that is not me versus me. It is, there is a sense of worth that I'm attaching to this, or there's a sense of desire that I'm needing to fulfill by being busy, right? It's whatever that's underneath that's actually the root of the behavior. It's not the surface stuff that you're seeing, but the me versus me mentality is it's actually, it can be destructive. It's healthy in a certain degree, because I want to challenge myself a little bit, like let this be a challenge for me, but I'm not trying to defeat myself and then make myself miserable for not having been able to do something, right? Which you're beating yourself up over.
Well, if you think about it, if something is always me versus me, one of you is always losing. You know what I mean? You can't
100%. You are in a lose 100%.
Right.
And at the end of the day, exactly, one of you has to lose.
Right.
or one of you's challenging more, right? So like you didn't do enough, like there's more to lift tomorrow, or you didn't work hard enough, even though you were just basically like borderline passing out, you know?
Well, and it's an interesting perspective too, because when I first got into weight training, not really knowing what I was doing, I would go into the gym 6 days a week and I would be in there for 2 or 3 hours. Back day, I do every back exercise that I possibly sorry about that, possibly could. But I think that like now it was actually I answered that call. Anyways, but now it's like, I go to the gym like, 3 days a week or 4 days a week. I have a plan when I go in there. When I'm done, I leave. And it's like, I don't have, I'm not getting ready to get on stage. My body fat is higher than, it used to be. And it's like, what I'm really experiencing is peace. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have this desire to constantly be driven to do more, be better, you're not enough type of a, mentality that can often be masked as being disciplined or being, whatever. So
Exactly. Yeah. Or you feeling like you have control.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, when we overextend, and especially when we are always in control of what we're doing. Right. So the more that I do, the more that I have control. When I feel like I'm not doing, I feel like I'm not in control. Right. So like that is essential, knowing what is it that makes you feel good about this? Like, is this this make you feel good? Right. Number one, is this comfortable for you? And then of course, like, what is the end result of this? Is this just for movement, to move my body, to make my body feel good, to show up for me today? It could be as simply as like, I just need to move my body because I need to like literally feel awake today. Heighten, move myself back up to a ventral state, like having joy in movement. And me being able to move my body, like simply because there's other people that would love to be able to have the chance to move their body. And we get into this nasty relationship with our bodies that really is not needed, but it's a way for us to control ourselves, because if we can't control other people, what is the one person or thing that we can? Is everything that we do and who we are. Yeah. Well, that relationship needs to, like that's the first thing too. Is just, like if you're, again, any sort of fitness regimen or anything in general that you're moving into, what is the intent behind this and why is it important for you to do it? Begin to address it before you get into it, because that way, that is your motivating factor. If you don't know why you're going into anything, you're going to find less motivation to do it probably 3 days later, because you have no intention behind it. It's just like, I saw this girl and I really liked her body, so I really want to have that body, so I'm going to go into the gym. Well, that's not serving you, and you don't know your intent behind actually going to the gym. So this cycle is not going to continue unless there is purpose or meaning behind the cycle. So like, you have to be able to have intention with what it is that you're trying to do, because the intention ends up being your motivation.
Well, it's just like,
I know so much.
We like went way below the surface of everything today.
Everything starts there and everything ends there, like, I mean, I'm so below the surface all the time. That's really where the meat and potatoes are of, life, and what's in your own way, and really why people are having more success than others. It has nothing to do with, it does have a little to do with, traits and skill sets that we're born with. Right. But, really, we are the ones that are in our own way most of the time.
Yeah. That's 100% true. And I think, man, everybody can gain something from investing in themselves with a little bit of
big time
therapy.
big time, or inquiry. If I would say, like, if you're not ready to see someone yet because you're feeling vulnerable and exposed, because that's definitely a normal, natural thing to feel, is that just really begin to inquire within yourself. Like, what is it that I'm feeling? What in my environment is making me feel this way? And what is it that I need to do in order to, let this feeling go, or transmute this feeling into something else? Is something that I need to be doing, or do I need to just really remove myself? Right. So you're just start the internal dialogue. And when the thoughts pop up, question them. Don't just allow them to just run the show. Right. You can be your own therapist with some prompts and things that are helping you kind of just navigate your way into a lighter place. And so that's, if you're not ready yet, you will be ready. You will be ready sometime. If it's something that's, you're putting on your heart, that like it's something that you'd like to do, but you just don't feel ready yet. It's okay, because again, you want to feel okay going to the person, already feeling exposed, already feeling vulnerable. It's totally normal to be feeling that way. And but know that you do have support. There's always someone there that is like your person. So like, I don't know if I can go to that therapist. They're not really quite, good for me. You get that vibe. Just, move with the vibe too. Your intuition is in your gut is really accurate if you listen most of the time.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that as well. So
yeah.
Stephanie, where can people find you if they're looking for more information or to follow some of your great content?
Yeah, so I'm posting on two different sites for Instagram. Really, that's my main source of basically social connection. It's Lady Hammer, so Lady _ Hammer. That's the first handle, and then Sage is the name of the practice that I have, and it's _ Sage _ and Sage is spelled with an SAYGE. And meaning for that is really you are speaking your healing, and getting to the root of things is really coming out to acknowledge and begin to appreciate your journey for what it was, even in the midst of, all the crap. And so if you're looking for some support, I'd love to be able to help you. And you can go on www.thesage.com and book a free call to chat with me more about what's going on with you and figure out how I can support you.
Amazing. And I will put those in the show notes as well. You can find me on Instagram at buffcake22. You can follow the podcast at the Women's Fittest, and find us wherever you listen to podcasts on any platform. So, and to remember that healthy looks different on everybody. Have a great day.
Oh, girl. Yeah. Health looks different on everyone. Oh gosh. Thank you so much.